Although we usually discuss existing places all around the world, today we will tell you about one that does not actually exist. In this video we are going to talk about El Dorado, the lost city of gold. But first, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. Many conquistadors were lured into South America's rainforests and mountains by the promise of El Dorado, a lost city of wealth. But it was all a figment of imagination. Recent archaeological study reveals that the Golden One was a person, not a site. The landing of Columbus in the Americas in AD 1492 marked the beginning of a world-changing collision of cultures. It was a terrible showdown of diametrically opposed lifestyles and belief systems. The European legend of El Dorado, a lost city of gold, waiting to be discovered by a daring conqueror, reflects the Europeans' insatiable desire for gold, and their unwavering determination to exploit these new territories for their monetary value. On the other hand, the South American legend of El Dorado reveals the genuine nature of the land, and the people who lived there. El Dorado was never a place to them, but rather a monarch, who was said to wrap himself with gold from head to toe every morning, and wash it off in a sacred lake every evening. At Lake Guatavita, Dr. Yago Cooper is joined by Muisca protector Enrique Gonzalez. Enrique Gonzalez maintained traditional practices alive at Lake Guatavita, according to Yago Cooper. Using a combination of early historical writings and fresh archaeological evidence, the true tale behind the myth has slowly been pieced together in recent years. Various Spanish chroniclers, who arrived on this strange continent in the early 16th century, began to write about the El Dorado ceremony, with Juan Rodriguez Fraile providing one of the best versions. When a Muisca chief died, the process of succession, for the chosen Golden One, would begin, according to Fraile's book, The Conquest and Discovery of the New Kingdom of Granada, published in 1636. The community's chosen new leader, usually the previous chief's nephew, would go through a lengthy initiation process, culminating in the ultimate act of paddling out on a raft onto a sacred lake, such as Lake Guatavita in central Colombia. Surrounded by the four top priests, who were decorated with feathers, gold crowns, and body adornment, the leader would set out to make an offering of gold artifacts, emeralds, and other precious objects to the gods, by throwing them into the lake, naked, save for a covering of gold dust. The round lake's banks were lined with ornately dressed onlookers playing musical instruments and lighting fires that nearly completely hid the sun from this crucible-like lake basin. 4 flaming fires erupted from the raft, sending clouds of incense into the sky. The priest would raise a flag in the middle of the lake to elicit stillness from the audience. The masses would declare their allegiance to their new leader, by yelling their support from the shoreline at this point. Many features of this view of events have been confirmed by meticulous archaeological research, which also indicates Colombia's outstanding competence and size of gold manufacture at the time of European arrival, in 1537. Lost wax casting tunjo made of tumbaga. It shows a seated man, holding a staff with the end lodged in a bird, as well as stick-like items, that are most likely darts. Tunjus, or god offerings, were left at sacred locations, such as lakes and caves. Gold, or more precisely, tumbaga, a gold, silver, and copper alloy, was highly prized in Muisca civilization, not for its monetary value, but for its spiritual power, linked to the gods, and ability to bring balance and harmony to Muisca culture. Enrique Gonzalez, a Muisca descendant, says that gold does not represent success to his ancestors. Gold is nothing more than an offering for the Muisca of today, just as it was for our forefathers. Gold does not reflect wealth to us. Recent research by Maria Alicia Uribe Villegas of the Museo del Oro, in Bogotá, and Marcos Martín Torres, of the University College London Institute of Archaeology, has revealed that these gold objects were made specifically for immediate use, as offerings to the gods in Muisca society, to encourage them to maintain the cosmos equilibrium, and ensure a stable relationship with their environment. The fabrication and use of Muisca metalwork was unique in South America, according to archaeologist Roberto Leras Perez, an expert on Muisca gold craftsmanship and belief systems. As far as I'm aware, no other community devotes more than half of its output on votive offerings. I believe it is one of a kind, he declares. The gold artifacts, like the tunjus, votive offerings, usually flat, anthropomorphic figures, on digital display at the British Museum, were manufactured using the lost wax process, which involves forming clay molds around fragile wax models, before melting and casting them in gold. Because all of the gold objects in each offering have the same chemical signature, as well as distinct manufacturing characteristics, it's apparent that they were manufactured precisely for this offering, and may have only existed for a few hours or days before being deposited. Surprisingly, 3 locals discovered a gold raft, showing a picture identical to that described by Juan Rodriguez Fraile, in a small cave, in the hills south of Bogotá in 1969. The real narrative of El Dorado is about a guy covered in gold, who goes out into a sacred lake, such as Lake Guatavita. The way this story evolved into the idea of a legendary gold city, demonstrates how gold was a separate source. They had little appreciation for its genuine worth in Muisca civilization. The sheer amount of gold that must have been dumped into the deep depths of the lake, and buried at other sacred places around Colombia, absolutely astonished European wits. These rumors of El Dorado drew the Spanish conqueror Jiménez de Quesada, and his army of 800 men, away from the gold to establish an overland passage, to Peru in 1537, and for the first time, up into the Andean homeland of the Muisca. Quesada and his troops were drawn deeper, and further into unfamiliar and hostile territory, where many died. But what Quesada and his men saw, shocked them, since the Muisca's goldworking was unlike anything they'd ever seen. The intricately wrought gold pieces employed processes never before seen by European eyes. Regrettably, the desperate search for gold is still ongoing. Archaeologists at outstanding research centers, such as Bogotá's Museo del Oro, are combating an increasing wave of thievery. So, like the European conquistadors of the 16th century, today's conquistadors are ravaging South America's past, and robbing us of its wonderful stories. The amount of gold discovered by these scavengers is still incredible. When looters identified new sites in northern Colombia in the 1970s, the global gold market crashed. The vast majority of valuable, pre-Columbian gold objects have been melted down as a result of this El Dorado-inspired gold robbery, and the true significance of these artifacts, as clues to the workings of an ancient civilization, has been lost forever. Fortunately, the Museo del Oro in Bogotá and the British Museum in London have surviving collections of artifacts that can provide insight into these varied viewpoints, as well as illustrate the genuine narrative behind the stories of El Dorado. What do you think about this video? Let us know down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.